Have you ever stopped to think about what a country's healthcare system says about its soul? I mean, it's not just about hospitals and pills. It's about deep, fundamental values. So today we're going to unpack the moral blueprint behind public health, and we're using the absolutely fascinating and complex nation of Nepal as our case study.
I mean, just think about this question for a second. This is what Nepal is up against. You've got towering mountains, hundreds of different cultures and ethnic groups, and a really tight budget. Trying to build a system that works for everyone, that's not just a logistical nightmare, it's a deeply ethical one. So where do you even start?
Well, the answer starts with this idea called axiology. Now, I know it sounds super academic, but stick with me. Just think of it as a system's ethical operating system. It's the set of core beliefs running in the background, quietly deciding who gets care, what kind of care they get, and why. It is quite literally the moral blueprint for every single decision. And in a place like Nepal, this is not some abstract theory. Not at all. It's a constant, daily negotiation. You've got ancient, traditional medicine bumping up against modern science. You have constitutional rights meeting the hard, cold reality of poverty. It's this living, breathing system of values constantly in motion.
Okay, so to really get the values that shape Nepal's health system today, we've got to rewind a bit and look at how it all evolved. And its journey is, honestly, a pretty dramatic story of transformation, from a system built for the few to one that's supposed to be a right for all.
For about 100 years, under what was called the Rana regime, healthcare was basically a luxury item for the wealthy elite. The first massive change came in 1991, with a new policy that tried to reach the majority of people living in rural areas. Then, after the Civil War, the 2006 peace agreement baked the idea of social justice right into the health system. And all of that led to the 2015 Constitution, which made the final monumental shift. Health was no longer charity. It was a fundamental right for every single citizen.
So what does a system like that actually look like on the ground? Well, its ethical operating system is built on 4 key pillars. These are the core values that guide public health in Nepal today. These 4 pillars are justice and equity, community participation, medical pluralism, and accountability. Put them together, and they form the foundation of the whole system. So let's break them down one by one.
First up, rights-based justice and equity. This one is the absolute cornerstone. It completely reframes health as something everyone is entitled to, not a privilege for the lucky few. And given the country's history, that's a massive, profound change. Number 2 is community participation. Now, instead of some top-down, we-know-best approach, Nepal's system is really built on this idea of communal solidarity. The perfect example of this is the incredible network of female community health volunteers. They are the trusted local face of healthcare in villages all across the country. The third pillar is medical pluralism, and this one shows such a deep respect for culture. The system doesn't just push a Western one-size-fits-all model. Instead, it formally recognizes and even integrates traditional healing, like Ayurveda, right alongside modern medicine. It honors the fact that there are different ways of understanding what it means to be sick and what it means to be well.
And finally, we have accountability and good governance. Now, in a country that depends on international aid, this is absolutely critical. It's a promise to be transparent and ethical, to make sure that resources are used fairly and that the system is serving the people it's supposed to protect, not just outside interests. Okay, so Nepal has this really powerful, really admirable moral blueprint. But, as anyone who's ever tried to build something knows, even the best blueprints run into problems on the construction site. So let's look at the tensions that pop up when these incredible ideals meet the messy realities on the ground.
Here's a classic one, the individual versus the community. The system's values, by design, focus on the well-being of the whole group. Think about something like a vaccine mandate, which is there to protect everybody. But that can clash head-on with individual autonomy, where a person's personal beliefs or maybe their hesitancy creates real friction with those public health goals.
And then you've got this huge gap between equity on paper and actual access on the ground. The Constitution guarantees care for everyone. Sure, but what does that really mean for someone living in a super remote mountain village compared to someone in Kathmandu? Scarce resources and that deep divide between city and country mean that the promise of equity is often way harder to deliver in real life. And the challenges just keep piling on. New pressures are constantly testing the system. Climate change is bringing new diseases. A dependence on foreign aid can sometimes introduce competing values. And a new federal system creates all sorts of coordination problems. All of this just stretches that gap between the ideals and reality even wider. So, with all these tensions, what do you do? Is the moral blueprint just wrong? Well, the conclusion here isn't to just throw out these amazing values, but to actually engage with them more deeply and, frankly, more honestly.
The proposed path forward is this idea called reflexive praxis. Okay, another academic-sounding term. But the idea is actually pretty simple. It means you are consciously and constantly looking at the system's values at every single stage, from the moment a policy is designed all the way to how care is delivered in a tiny local clinic. It's about making those hidden values obvious to everyone.
So what does that actually look like? Well, it means when you're designing a new health program, you explicitly state the values behind it. It means you go out and have real, deliberate conversations with communities about what they need. And, so importantly, it means you track results not just for the whole population, but you break it down for the most marginalized groups, by caste, by gender, by geography, to see if that promise of equity is actually being met.
And this all brings us to the core takeaway here. Values aren't just pretty, ornamental words you stick in a policy document. They are constitutive. They are the very engine of the system. They are what determine whose health counts, whose knowledge matters, and ultimately whether the whole point is to serve human dignity or just to manage disease. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've just unpacked the moral blueprint of Nepal, with all of its incredible strengths and its real-world struggles. But this isn't really just about Nepal, is it? It's an invitation for all of us to ask a tough question about our own systems. What are the hidden values, the unspoken beliefs that are shaping the healthcare that you and your community receive?